Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen That, a movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. I'm your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Ben.
And today we are finishing up our best picture winner. Is that what it's called? Best picture? I don't know why that
call it best picture.
That it sounded weird to me. I don't know, because you always talk about the big picture, but I got confused. So we're wrapping up our best picture winner month by talking about CODA, which won the best picture award in 2022. I'll take that away from Geoff. One last thing he doesn't have to mention. And stick around until the end because we will be talking about our top 4 songs that we sang when we were in choirs.
CODA. As a child of deaf adults, or CODA for short, Ruby is the only hearing person in her deaf family. When the family's fishing business is threatened, Ruby finds herself torn between pursuing her love of music and her fear of abandoning her parents. Released in August 2021, the number 1 song, Stay by The Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber. I'll be honest, haven't heard of it.
Nope.
I feel like whenever we have a movie that came out between like 1999 and 2011, 100% chance I know the song.
Yeah.
Yes.
Before and after, it's dicier.
We're getting a little tough. Yeah, it was one of those where I looked at the chart and it was like, for like 3 months beforehand, it was 3 different BTS songs, and then this song for like 3 weeks, and then another BTS song for like a big stretch. I was like, oh boy, we were really into the K-pop phase.
Yeah,
I was really kicking off there. In world news, I guess technically not world news, but more U.S. news. Andrew Cuomo resigns as New York governor amid a sexual harassment scandal. And when this movie is out, the Summer Olympics were going on. And probably notably around this time, both USA men's and women's basketball both took home gold. And then lastly, in sports news, Lionel Messi leaves FC Barcelona for PSG. That's a very big world sports news thing. Less of a local tie-in. CODA was directed by Sean Hayter, and this movie stars Emilia Jones, Troy Kotzer, and Marlee Matlin. This is the English language remake of a French movie called La Famille Bélier. This movie debuted at the Sundance Film Festival in January 2021, where it won multiple prizes, including the U.S. Grand Jury Prize, sparked a massive bidding war, which was eventually won by Apple. This movie was very well received by critics, 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, 72% on Metacritic. Now, you'll notice I did not say any box office numbers there. This was the first movie produced or distributed by a streaming service to win Best Picture. So no official domestic box office numbers or anything like that, which is also hilarious because Netflix by this time had 7 movies nominated for Best Picture and never won. So much like with the Emmys and TV, someone else beat Netflix to the punch.
Womp,
Which is why
this
Netflix
was
was going to buy them all.
Exactly. This movie was also the first Sundance movie to win Best Picture. We've had Sundance movies nominated, but none had won up to this point. This was also nominated for and won Best Supporting Actor and Best Adapted Screenplay. The movies that it beat for Best Picture: Belfast, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, Part 1, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story.
Don't Look Up was a joke being nominated that year.
That was definitely one of those weird ones, which is actually hilarious now looking back, because it's like actually kind of relevant, which is still.
The only one I saw of those before CODA was West Side Story, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. I still think it's a little surprising that this actually ended up winning.
Yeah, we can get into it. This is
like
a weird
COVID
one.
year too.
Definitely a COVID year one. And my hot take is that if they were still doing 5 nominees for Best Picture and they hadn't expanded it, this movie would not have been nominated for Best Picture. Because it took off after like the nomination was received and everything kind of played out. Hence why I was only nominated
getting 3
in 3
nominations is kind of
that's it.
That's got to be really low for a Best Picture winner.
It is for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this will probably be pretty brief, but Geoff, tell us your history with this movie.
So I've only seen CODA once. I think we watched it together, Amanda. I remember us watching it together. And I believe of the movies that were nominated for Best Picture that year, this was the last one I needed to see. I had seen all of them up to this point in theaters, or in the case of The Power of the Dog and which one? Don't Look Up. Caught those on streaming already, so those were fine. But yeah, this was the last one I needed to see. And I watched it maybe 2 days before the Academy Awards once I kind of figured out like, oh, this is going to win Best Picture. Okay, we should probably watch this. And haven't picked it up since. So I was excited to check this one out again.
Yeah, for sure. What about you, Ben?
I remember when it won. I mean, I watched this Oscars for sure. This was the slap year.
Ooh, slap year.
Yep, King Richard. Yeah.
But like I said, the only thing I'd seen at the time was West Side Story. I remember my parents really liking this movie. I think they had watched it on streaming, but that was really it. I don't have much of a history with this.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't have much to add outside of, Geoff mentioned that we watched it together right before the Academy Awards when it came out. So that's about it for me. Ben, let's hear your score for CODA.
Okay. So a year ago, we did Parasite for one of our Best Picture winners months. When we did our Best Picture winners month last year, we did Parasite. One of my great regrets in this podcast is that I didn't give Parasite a 5. That I gave it a 4.75 because I hedged my bets. And the only thing I've ever given a 5 to was Mrs. Doubtfire and Back to the Future, which
you've seen multiple times.
Which are favorites for the last 30 years of my life.
Which I know there are definitely a couple movies that I'm like, yeah, that's a 5. Like like looking back, I'm like,
and then I've given 4.75s multiple times, like things like The Godfather and Parasite. But I really regret not giving Parasite a 5. And all that is to say, I freaking loved CODA. I thought I thought this movie was so good. I'm giving it a 5, and I am partially to make up for my Parasite fiasco. Because I was like, I'm not going to keep hedging my bets. If I really, really love a movie we watch, I'm going to give it a 5. And I'm curious what you two think of it, but I loved it.
I'm really proud of you for just going for it and giving it a 5.
I love it.
All right, Geoff, let's hear your score.
It's so weird looking at this movie kind of in the micro focus of everything basically post-COVID. That's one Best Picture, where it's like you have these grand epics, these super inventive sci-fi movies. Goodness gracious, what won last year? Like inventive indies that are indie dramas that are whatever. And this movie kind of sticks out weirdly in a sore thumb compared to some of those movies. So it's very funny kind of looking at it, but I also love this movie. Now, I have a tie to this world because the school I went to in college was the National Technical Institute for the Deaf. And so these kind of movies just naturally kind of tie home. Like I get a lot of the references. I understand a lot of the plot points, like really, really means a lot to me in a lot of cases here. And much like you, Ben, I love this movie a lot. I think this is up there with some of the best that we've talked about here on this podcast. I'm not gonna give this a 5, but I will give this a 4.25.
All right. And I feel very similar to both of you. I really, really like this movie. I think it's really sweet and funny and just kind of hits on all the right notes. The biggest thing is I don't feel like I'm being Oscar baited by this movie, which is, rare for the kind of movie that wins an Oscar. But I am also giving this a 5.
Woo! All right.
Well, we've ended the season with our number one movie of season 2.
There we go.
CODA with an average rating of 4.75
All
is the
right.
number one movie of season 2, and overall is the number 3 movie in our podcast, only behind The Godfather and Parasite.
That feels right. That
Yeah.
feels right.
That feels good. I feel good about that.
Which again is crazy as we talk about it, but like it is such a well-made movie.
It really is, and
And-
it's so simple. Like,
Yeah.
like it's.
Mhm.
And Amanda, I agree with what you said about it not feeling like Oscar bait, and also like I kept thinking it was going to get a little cloying, a little,
Mhm.
touchy feely, like,
Mhm.
and it certainly has like that element to it, but it doesn't feel that way.
No.
Like it doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it's like manipulating you emotionally, even though it certainly is impacting you emotionally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was reading through the reviews for this movie on Letterboxd, and I was getting pretty annoyed because there's a common theme among a lot. First of all, people on Letterboxd don't like this movie that much, which is interesting. But a lot of people compare it to a Disney Channel movie, which in some lights I can kind of see the comparison, especially compared to other movies, that end up winning Best Picture. And, we already touched a bit on this being an interesting year for the Oscars. And, had situations been different, this probably wouldn't have won Best Picture. But anyways, I don't see it as a Disney Channel movie.
No, I feel like
No,
it goes
it's
back
not.
to like you can be a really good version of the kind of movie you are, and that's
Mhm.
great. Like it doesn't need not every Best Picture nominee or winner needs to be like this inventive genre spinning kind of thing
Yeah.
or this epic, like accomplishment. Like it can be a really good version of the type of movie it's trying to be, and this is a
Mhm.
really good version of a family drama.
It's an extraordinary
Yeah.
version of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very well
absolutely.
made, very well acted. It feels authentic in every way in terms of the incorporation of deaf culture and the struggles they go through. And it, of course, at the center of the movie, you just have really good, compelling performances.
Mhm.
Which Ben, I figured you would love this because of our girl Amelia Jones.
Oh
in the
yeah,
center of this.
yeah,
Shout out Task.
yes.
She would have been my personal pick. So every year I do my own Oscar ballots. I feel like I've talked about this every time we mention this. Not only was Amelia Jones my pick for Best Actress for this year, which I forget, I think Jessica Chastain won for The Eyes of Tammy Faye this year. She is also my pick for like the best acting performance of the year, and how she is able to balance the dramatic nature of her role, the compelling vocal performance to actually be like, hey, you're selling yourself as someone who's going to music school. Plus, you need to learn sign language and incorporate that effectively into everything you're doing. Like, it's so good. Her
And she
performance
wasn't
is
even
so great.
nominated, which is sad.
She wasn't. And I think
Yeah.
if CODA, so the big kind of deal with this movie was that it just needed to get over the line to get nominated. And then once it did, Apple cranked up the marketing. They did a whole campaign with like the president, where they screened the movie at the White House, and the president talked about the movie, President Biden, and then it won a number of different awards at other associations. And I believe the big one, if memory serves me right, yes, it won Best Cast at the Screen Actors Guild Awards, the SAG Awards. Sorry, the Actor Awards, if you want to call it that, which is the Best Picture at that award ceremony, much like Parasite won in 2020 before it went on to win Best Picture. So it kind of having that sort of big push at the end, where it was kind of assumed that like The Power of the Dog would probably win Best Picture, or maybe Belfast would win Best Picture. And then all of a sudden this movie comes out of nowhere. I think if it had that same level of momentum and push before all of the award ceremonies, Amelia Jones gets nominated. You could probably nominate Marlee Matlin as well. This movie is definitely a lock. It probably even gets like a Best Sound nomination for the work that it did. It probably doesn't beat Dune, but it gets nominated in the category, I feel like. So yeah, there are a lot of ways this movie would have even gotten greater accolades.
Would this have been your pick for Best Picture that year, or
no? Dune was my pick, but in a landslide.
Of course.
Sorry,
I
everybody.
don't know why I even asked.
Oh, you're good. This would have been nominated for me. Like I would have nominated it for Best Picture for sure, but I would not have. They would not have beaten Dune.
Yeah.
Sorry, everybody.
Shocking.
I know, right?
It's on brand. I also think that like two things that this movie did that I really appreciated. One, first of all, it was nice to see like a teacher who didn't turn out to be a creep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's so often in this kind of world that something, you know, whether or not they do something like illegal or they just end up being like not a good person kind of thing. Like I feel like that's such a common trope in movies like this. And then two, I always feel like you're setting yourself up for failure potentially when you like when the premise of your movie is that somebody's really, really talented and nobody sees their talent kind of thing. Because then that has to actually work for, you know, and I feel like there's been too many, you know, Smash, the TV show is a perfect example of this, where they all obsess over Catherine McPhee's character, and then she sings, and I'm like, you know, like, and yet everybody's like, oh my gosh, you know, like, and so I think here, like Amelia Jones, you know, she's not the greatest singer ever, but she sells the heck out of that Both Sides Now song at the end, that it really pays off and it works. Like, and I mean, that's a great song. I love that song. I've loved it ever since I used to hear it on the Wonder Years.
When she broke out the sign language for that song, I was
Yes.
hoping she was going to do that at some point, whether it be like even at the
At the
concert
talent
that she
show
puts
or-
on.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
the concert, yeah.
In some way. And then when she actually, and even when she's singing to her dad right before that, like at the end of the movie, I thought she was going to sign it for him, but all he wanted to do was just feel her vocal cords the same way he listens to like the bass music and everything and hip hop music, which is so powerful and so beautiful to watch. And the way it's presented, oh God, it's
and as great as that movie was, it
beautiful.
could have failed if that wasn't a killer performance at the end.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely.
Also, if you were curious, I had CODA nominated for 6 Academy Awards back in 2021. Picture, actress, which it won, supporting actor, adapted screenplay, sound, and song. I don't know why I nominated it for original song, but apparently it had an original song from it. I don't know. I forgot.
I mean, not Both Sides Now.
Not Both Sides Now. Some song called Beyond the Shore, which I guess I liked, but I had losing to We Don't Talk About Bruno from Encanto, which I guess
didn't stand a chance.
No, sorry.
One thing that I forgot about this movie rewatching it is just how funny it was.
It's a very funny movie.
Yeah.
Like that's also something you don't expect from a Best Picture winner. Like usually they are, you know, definitely more dramatic. And even if you read the premise of, you know, this movie, you wouldn't think it's a funny movie, but the way that the family interacts with each other and just their relationship, like they're able to have so many funny moments.
Right from early on when she's like translating for the doctor, like that's one of my favorite. It's so early in the movie, and it's one where she's like, you know, when can we, you know, have sex again? The parents want to. She's like, never again, done for life.
And he's so upset. Like, what?
Like, oh, fine. No, it was so funny. And that's one thing about deaf culture that I learned when I went to college was like, you need to be very overly expressive, really need to drive home a lot of points. Like, you know, because there aren't as many like subtle cues that you could slip in or whatever through like words or whatever, you need to be like very deliberate in what you're signing and very deliberate about what you're trying to communicate. So a lot of those things are very expressive. A lot of talking is done with the eyes and the face as much as, you know, the hands and gestures and everything. So yeah, they really drive that home a lot. I think they do a good job of selling that very early on in the movie that it's needed to be done.
Yeah. And I just love, like, I didn't know a lot about deaf culture before I watched this movie. And I didn't remember much, but you know, it's really enjoyable, like learning about those things. Like one thing that hits me every time I watch this, and it's something you never think about, but I'm like, yeah, I never would have thought that like deaf people would be really loud when, like, you know, they're together and you are, you know, someone who can hear. I just wouldn't think about it, but it makes sense, right? Like they don't recognize that, you know, the plates are making loud sounds or their chair backing up or farting or burping, whatever, like, you know. And I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. It's just not something I ever would have considered.
I think
Yeah,
it makes you. Oh, sorry, Jeff.
No. You first, Ben. Sorry.
I think it really makes you think. Like, it makes me think both about what it would be like to be a child of deaf adults who's hearing, and then it also makes me think of like what it would just be like to be deaf in general. And I think that's like, there are media presentations of that, but it's not something that gets shown as much as the Black experience or the poor experience or the immigrant experience or the like other marginalized communities. Like, I don't think this gets nearly as much media representation, and so I feel like it's not something you think about as much.
Yeah.
Right. And it's probably mostly because it affects a smaller group,
Right.
than what you mentioned there, but I think it is an important story to tell, especially if it does hit home for you in a certain way, where it's like, yeah, that is very, like, we had conversations during the movie, Amanda and I did, about like different thought processes or the way people who are deaf would like think about certain topics or process certain topics, like how.
Oh yeah.
What do they?
Like, I was asking Geoff if he thought deaf people have like an internal monologue, and like if they could, like, you at least I have an internal monologue. I can hear my own voice even in my head, even if I'm not speaking. And I'm like, do they have that? Do they have any sort of internal monologue? I don't know.
Good question.
But yeah, we were kind of discussing things like that.
I was also thinking how texting has probably been like the greatest thing for the deaf community.
Yes.
Like, like talk about how much people communicate that way, in a way that doesn't involve speaking compared to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember working on campus. When I worked on campus and I would occasionally deal with like deaf students. One of my jobs when I was at RIT was like a front desk receptionist for the club's office. So people that were presidents or treasurers of clubs who needed to come in and meet with staff members about money and budgets and those different things, or setting up clubs, they would come in and I would initially meet them. And I got to know a few people there, but I knew there were a number of deaf clubs that would come in, and I would try my best. Like, I know some words, I know how to spell, I know that kind of thing, but like, you can only get so far. So my experience is like, if deaf, if you're trying, like if you're making an effort, it's totally okay to like show your phone for texting or write things down or whatever. Totally okay. You will never be frowned at as long as you're making an effort and trying. Like, that's so okay. That's
But why
no big
can't that
deal.
deaf patient in the pit?
I know.
Just right.
I have a feeling
Jeff and I were literally saying that during the episode. Like,
It's interesting to be watching like CODA and then watch the pit the next night or whenever I did. And
yeah, I have to think it's a like processes thing where it's like you have to like go through a certain avenue or a certain whatever to officially do something, and if things get messed up there in the communication element, then everybody is in trouble basically. I don't even know.
Yeah. Anyways, back to this movie.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
No, I
it
think
was a good tie-in.
Great tie-in. And I think it's it's great timing, and too, because for context, when we record these episodes, we usually do it a few weeks in advance. This one we're recording very close to when the episode is actually airing. So when we're talking about the
fresh storyline on the pit,
exactly, we're like up to date. So it's necessary to talk about.
Yeah, and no spoilers because nothing's really happened with her yet.
Right,
Except for
exactly.
Dr. Santos has just been like, ugh, I can't communicate with you. We need to wait for an interpreter. Which I definitely said, why can't she just ask her to write things down?
Right. At least to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, but then you couldn't use Dr. Alashimi's AI app.
Anyways.
Sorry.
One thing that I really appreciate about this movie is kind of like Geoff had mentioned before, but its use of sound and its use of subtitles.
Mm-hmm.
I always find it like they just thought about this so much. I think that like if anyone in the family is talking to someone who doesn't understand sign language, there's no subtitles. We don't know what they're saying because, what's her face? What was her name? Ruby, yeah. Because Ruby's not around to interpret for us, the audience. And then on the flip side, I absolutely loved during the talent show choir performance, whatever it was, when they cut all the sound
Yes,
Mhm.
I love
That-
that too.
Love
yeah.
it.
We got the experience from their side of like,
Right. And I
you
was
know,
hoping they were going to do that. Like I like when this,
Yeah.
I was like hoping that was going to happen, and it was very nice to see it happen.
Agreed.
yeah, absolutely. Just having to like, just putting you in their shoes of like having to rely on context cues of like, what is everyone in this audience doing? How are they reacting to the way my daughter's singing?
Mhm.
Because I'm worried that she's not good.
Right. That's such a big point with the mom too, which is so frustrating when we're sitting here. We're like, oh my gosh, that's so annoying. Like, come on, just trust your daughter. But like, she has no idea. She has no
Right.
clue. And she's been, I'm sure, burned before because of her disability. I'm sure their other family members have been burned because of their disability. And she's scared for her daughter. And it's like, you want her to trust Ruby. Like, it's just like, come on, just trust her. But like, she has no clue. And so she needs to trust those that are, whatever with her, like her vocal teacher, her best friend. It's like those are the only points that she has to even lean on to think like, is my daughter actually any good at this? Like, I have no idea.
And it's such a different world because I mean, I think you so often have parents who think, as a musical director, so often have parents who think their kids are the best at things like that. So it's interesting to see the other side of it, where like she really doesn't know, but doesn't even have a frame of reference to know what is the best. You know what I mean? Like what that looks like. Like it's
Absolutely.
such a foreign world to her. And I also was like struck by like the realities of them at the concert, where like they're first coming in, they're talking about the curtain, or they're talking about, like things that don't have anything to do with the sound.
Right.
And then like, and also the reality of like, they're being supportive of her, but like how it gets boring for them. Like,
Yeah.
it's concerts sometimes can be boring even when you can hear them. And so like when you're sitting there and it's just like looks like the same thing over and over again, of course it's going to get boring.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, obviously I love this movie and I don't have a lot of notes as far as critique. If I were to give one critique towards it, I felt like there was more time than necessary spent on the romance. Because I'm like, I feel like that part was important for Ruby's growth and for the family's growth, but I don't feel like we needed a lot of scenes between Ruby and the boyfriend. Like, I just felt like that wasn't what this was about, and like I feel like it could have. I guess I feel like the point of him and that story could have probably been accomplished in half the time.
I don't think they even gave them that many scenes. They have, like,
they still had like the
three?
at the jumping off the cliff and stuff, and
Yeah.
they did that
Yeah.
twice. I was like, I don't know, I don't even really need like too much of that personally.
Yeah. It wasn't really giving anything to this.
It didn't ruin it for me or anything. It's
Yeah.
just like, to me, it was like, this isn't what this movie is about, and I don't really care about these scenes.
I
For
will
sure.
say, I'm gonna slightly push back on that, because I think
podcast content. Push back, go all the way.
no, I'm just gonna slightly push back on that, just because I think like Ruby is our main character,
Right.
and she's a senior in high school. It feels like something like that is just always supposed to happen, especially if something like choir is becoming more important. Like, this kid is auditioning for the same school she is. This kid has the same teacher that she does. They're doing a duet together. It feels like there needs to be some sort of necessary, like, needing for them to come together. And I don't really think they spent that much time focusing on the two of them, like, as much as they could. There's a movie that I'm going to recommend at the end of this podcast. Lady Bird is one of the movies I would pair with this movie, where the main focus of it is like, it's a girl going through her senior year of high school and the dramas and everything. And she has two boyfriends in that movie, like falls in love with one guy at the beginning, another guy later on. Shout out Lucas Hedges and Timothy Chalamet. But like no, right? Complete unknowns. But
complete unknown. You did that on purpose.
Wow. Pun very much not intended there. Jeez. Bravo, Ben. Nicely done. So and they're given plenty of scenes together, but like, I almost feel like in that movie, the amount of time that she spends with them is roughly the same amount of time as Ruby gets relative to like the full length of the movie. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's about the same amount. And I feel like if we didn't have their sort of emotional connection throughout the movie, the climax of the movie being the audition wouldn't have hit as hard because she gets up there and he's there and they've been practicing together and connected together. And all of a sudden the first words out of his mouth are, I blew it. And she is like already like at her limits. She's terrified. She's nervous, whatever. Like she is horrified of the situation. And I feel like if we're not given the probably 15 minutes or so of movie time, showcasing the two of them connecting more, maybe it's 20 minutes IDK, like overall, I don't think that scene would have hit as hard, or it just would have been like brushed away. But I don't know. I think it was necessary for the overall plot development of the movie.
That's fair. Maybe I just wasn't that enamored with of all the performances with his performance too. So maybe
I will agree with that though. Agree with that 100%. I was like, I don't believe this kid is a prodigy who is going to be going to this music school.
Yeah.
Like even when
sort
he's
of the problem I was talking about early on, where like the idea of like this great performer, but isn't really anything special.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
but it didn't matter as much because he's not the main character.
Right. Exactly. Like even when he's singing, it's almost like he is just naturally like holding back. And I know they mentioned at some point like his parents kind of forced him to pursue music and everything, but it's like he is almost holding back the entire time. It's like, are you sure? Like I know there's a whole comment about Ruby's like vocal control and everything from her teacher, but like this kid has got way too much like control and holding back in his voice. I'm not wowed, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's very frustrating, Ben. I'm sure you very well understand that when they first were like singing together and they were just being so like shy and reserved, and it's like, oh my god, show some emotion, y'all.
Always
pretend you're in love. It's okay. High schoolers.
Yep.
I was like, always. Ben understands that.
Speaking of choir, we've gone 30 minutes into this podcast and we have yet to talk about Bernardo Villalobos, their teacher, and the energy he's given off this whole time, just ridiculous. Such a choir teacher.
He is such a choir teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a couple good lines. I really liked his reaction to when he was making the students do the auditions to see what vocal part they would sing. And the first girl that went, who was an alto, and he was like, alto. I was like, I feel that, sir. But there were also way too many good kids in that choir.
Yeah.
There were a lot of good kids in that choir.
I was like, there's no way.
Yeah, you're like, that's not your average high school choir.
No.
Who would you
even if you are like signing up to do it as an extracurricular or whatever, like you're going to have a bunch of kids. You're going to have some kids that are terrible. You're going to have a bunch of kids that are mid, and you're going to have like 2 kids that are really that good.
For sure. Now, who would you rather have? Bernardo Villalobos or Mr. Shu from Glee?
Mr. Shu goes more into the creepy, inappropriate side that Ben mentioned.
I've never
earlier.
watched Glee. People are always surprised I never watched Glee.
Wait, you never watched Glee?
Okay. No, I know that. What I know about it, I'm going to go with Bernardo.
He's mean, but he means well.
Oh, incredibly. His techniques seem right. He's supportive. Like, yeah, I get it. I'd want to be a pupil under him. I didn't connect with my choir teacher in high school. You know, it was weird. He was a weird guy, but you know, he got a lot out of us. But I liked Mr. Villalobos's direction and stuff. Also, at the end of the movie, this is a little thing, but when he signs "nice to F you" to them, I can confirm I have tricked people into doing that in college. Yeah, it's always a fun one. And then I had to explain to Amanda what the difference is and everything, and yeah, it was very funny. I always laugh at that part.
I was like, show me "nice to meet you" and then show me the other one. I want to see what the difference is.
It's subtle, not a lot.
I think that's like the key part to a lot of ASL is there's so many very subtle differences between different signs.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So we were trying to figure out what Ruby at the end, she does the sign for "I love you," but she crosses her finger over.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It's like, what does that mean? Like, And Geoff was like, I don't know.
Maybe it's like, I love you so much. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. Or
my initial theory was like, I know I mentioned this to Amanda, but sometimes when you don't have to constantly spell out somebody's name and you're trying to get somebody's attention, where like someone wouldn't just be like, hey, to Ben, I wouldn't constantly be signing like Ben or whatever, and stuff gets lost. You're given like a name. It's just like one sort of symbol or one thing. And it's like, okay, that's your signed name, basically. Just like a quick, like, hey, and you're just, showing it real quick. And it's like, okay, I know you're talking to me.
Well,
maybe
Reddit
it was that, but
Reddit says that crossing the finger makes it an R, which then turns into I really love you.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, I was on the right track there with the so much.
You were. You nailed it. That's actually something Bryce Harper does after every one of his home runs for the Philadelphia Phillies when he crosses the plate.
Big CODA fan.
I guess so. But no, he signs I love you up to a certain section of seats.
Uh-huh.
But
yeah, the same section?
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Even on the road. I assume, or maybe it's just like a way to shout out his family. I've forgotten that part, but yeah, he does it with every one of his home runs.
Okay.
Yep.
I think one of the things going back to, because you talked about the choir scene where they get their perspective of the where there's no sound, but it's interesting to me that the first time that happens is like halfway through the movie. It's like at the Coast Guard scene. And up to that point they hadn't played anything totally in silence, like from their perspective of silence. Like they've had silent scenes at dinner and stuff, but not like their vision or their perspective of it, which I thought was interesting. The movie waited that long to do that. And I'm wondering like what their thought process was of when to use that and why to use it so sparingly.
Yeah, maybe
but I thought it worked.
Yeah, maybe they didn't want to overdo it, so they were like, let's pick two really important.
Right. Yeah. Right. And obviously the choir moment is a huge one.
For sure. And the Coast Guard scene too. It's so pivotal, which we were both watching it, Amanda and I, and it was like we were getting so frustrated at like the observer or whatever. It's like she's not doing anything. She's not getting on the radio. Where I was like, come on, help him out. But like she's also doing her job. Yeah. She's not supposed to get involved. She's not supposed to do whatever. But like, oh, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of that whole part of the movie, which I think is another fascinating part outside of like the music and Ruby and all of her storyline, but also like the fishing portion of it all. Again, not a world that I'm necessarily familiar with, so it's interesting to see that perspective and hear about like their problems and their hardships.
Yeah.
But I kind of wish we got a little bit more with the brother. I really liked him, and like especially at the end when he's driving home, like, I want to be able to do things for myself. I don't need your help to interpret for me all the time. And like, I'm like, I wish that we get glimpses of it here and there, but I wish that we could have seen that a little bit more.
Yeah. And that's something you see with, I think, the disability communities in general. Like they don't want things done for them, understandably,
Yeah.
It's just like, any, like, I mean, I think you see it with senior citizens too. And I think like a natural instinct is to help. And often it comes from an okay place in people's mind, but it feels condescending to them or feels a little demeaning to them. And I think that it's hard to remember because I think most people who are doing that are trying to help. I don't think they're meaning ill of it, but like, I wouldn't want somebody doing that for me. Like,
For sure.
Yeah. It's like, I think he's the one who says like, when they're like working at the co-op at that point and they are like, well, there's all these people at the co-op that, don't know ASL or whatever. And he was like, that's their problem. Let them figure out how to interact with me. Like,
right. Or leave it up to me to figure out how to interact with them too and whatever. Right. So yeah.
Right. Exactly. Both sides need to come together and learn.
Yeah. And it's such oh my gosh. I did actually watch a video recently on YouTube. I forget which channel it was. I think it was Morning Brew. They're like a business YouTube channel or whatever. And they were talking about a fish market in New York City and a competitive, like not competitive in terms of like whatever, but like they open at 3 a.m. for the fresh catches of the day for people to come in and restaurants to buy and whatever. And just seeing that world is so it was so interesting and eye-opening that like made this movie, which I had watched for the first time way before that video, made it like kind of hit home even harder, and like how hard it would be for them to like completely change their world on top of everything else that they have to deal with. And yeah, I know for some, I think in some cases it's presented with like a glass half full kind of perspective and sort of rosy glasses by the end of it all, but like that is hard. They have a lot in front of them, but it seems like, they didn't want to lean on Ruby as a crutch as much as they, wanted to ultimately, which, and she's only going to be in Boston, which I think was only going to be like a couple hours away. So I guess in case of emergency, she could show up, but I trust that they wouldn't lean on her too much after, the events of this movie take place.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
One other thing I wanted to say was, because I feel like we haven't talked too much about Marlee Matlin in this, but I thought her scene on the bed with Ruby was really good in the sense of like Ruby asked, did you wish I was deaf?
Yeah.
And she was honest about it. You know what I mean? Like it didn't, it wasn't like a yes, but now I love you so much for who you are. It was kind of like, yeah.
Yeah.
Like it was a very honest conversation. I just, I think that's another way where this movie kind of subverts, like that makes it not a Disney Channel movie.
Yeah.
That it kind of still keeps it real. It doesn't sugarcoat kind of the harder elements of this, the challenges that face a family like this.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And like why, yeah. I mean, I can understand her point of view, absolutely, because it's like you're deaf, your husband's deaf, your first child was deaf, like
right. It's what they know.
You're not gonna want like having a child that can hear is much harder at this point than having a child who's deaf again. So
yeah.
I understand her perspective,
especially like as a baby, like and a toddler, like more a toddler, like when they're first trying to express their want. I think of like my 2-year-old and how, if I couldn't hear what he's asking for, like
it's tough.
Yeah.
And even like from her perspective, when she first goes to school with other hearing kids, she even says at the beginning, like she was judged for having deaf voice, quote unquote, because she doesn't know. She didn't know any better. Yeah. So it would have been a lot easier for her family if she was deaf to just be like, okay, yeah, just mouth like we do and sign like we do and do what we do. It is so, yeah, it was such an impactful moment.
Yeah. And I think it would have been interesting if they showcased even more things that community has to use like on a regular basis. Like at one point when she's waking her dad up, you can see there's a flashing light in their bedroom, which, I'm assuming is what they use for an alarm clock.
Right.
But it's like, I'm really curious to know what other things like that, as you mentioned, like having a baby bed.
I would sleep right through a flashing light.
Yeah, I know. It's like you have to really heavily rely on vibrations. I know for that, it's almost like a doorbell as well. Like that's their doorbell. And just in general, because like sometimes when you go to like hotel rooms and you'll see like a little like a little thing, like a doorbell on the side, it's just, if you hold it down, it's just a flashing light. That's all it is in the room. I remember that from the RIT days. That's all. When I was an RA, it was like, oh yeah, we had some rooms that were, like they had doorbells, and it was like, that's how you got students' attention through there.
Interesting.
Yeah. The one interesting thing that I just remember from college was like every classroom having interpreters and needing interpreters in that sense. And like, if you don't have them, like how hard that is, like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interpreters are like, I don't know. Like Jeff and I were recently on a cruise and they did a production of Aladdin because, spoiler alert, it was a Disney cruise. And well, and they had 2 interpreters down front. And like, even though we were like in the balcony really far away from them, I like could not stop watching them. And I feel like that's always the case whenever there is an interpreter, because they're just so engaging. And like you said, Jeff, like a lot, obviously they do a lot of things like really over exaggerated, but like, I don't know, they're just really like interesting to watch. And I was curious because they only had 2 interpreters and they were obviously interpreting for an entire cast of characters. And so I was like, I wonder like, I wonder how, if that's confusing at all for people to know, like, I mean, one person was like always Aladdin and one person was always Jasmine, but then like obviously they interpreted for other characters as well, and I was like, I wonder.
So I know in classes, when I would go to college classes, they would always have two interpreters, but it was always to switch off. My classes would be 2 hours long, and you would have an interpreter for the first half and then an interpreter for the second half.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like a work scheduling, whereas like it's intense to do. You're listening and processing and having to communicate that back, and then having to do the same thing back from the students, like if that was ever a thing. And I feel like with almost like interpreting, like in that sense, it's like you have to almost differently be like, I'm Aladdin or whatever. Like you, or I'm Genie.
I think going back to thinking about like, would it be confusing? But like, I think the thing is that like, if you've been deaf your whole life, that's really all you know is being interpreted that way. But if you like were hearing and then became deaf, that would probably be a trickier adjustment. I mean, in many ways. But I think something like that too.
Yeah. No, that's very true. That's true. All right. Well, does anyone have any final thoughts before we move on?
I think my only final thoughts were I'm glad that you love this movie, Ben. Makes me very happy. Every time you like really go to bat for a movie, it makes me very happy, just in general. I'm like, yay, our podcast is working. But just looking at
Parasite, I should have given you a 5. Parasite.
It's okay. I think it was Good Will Hunting this year that I'm like, I gave it a 4.75. I'm like, nah, Good Will Hunting's a 5. Like that's a perfect movie. But looking at the lineup again for Best Picture is just so funny to see like that this movie won, and it was just like we just wanted a happy movie after everything that the world had been through for the last 2 years. I was like, let's just have a happy movie.
Yeah.
I think it was the case of like you could be really impressed with a lot of the movies that were nominated, like Power of the Dog is an achievement, or Belfast is this really heartfelt story and whatever. But like I feel like for CODA, it was just like, I just loved CODA. Like I got a family. I love this movie. There's nothing really that like, there wasn't a good movie per se that like also drove home like I also really like this or enjoy this or what have you. So congrats to CODA. I know for some people that's viewed in a quote unquote negative light, but no, I'm happy it won. As much as it pains me that it beat Dune, but what are you gonna do?
Let it go, Geoff.
What are you gonna do?
I have.
Good one, Ben.
I'm just going to bat for Dune Messiah in a few months. Just you wait until I get really annoying in December.
I feel like, do we even need to do our end of year top 10, or do we already know your number 1?
Well, here's the problem. We can go on a whole rant about this, but there are a bunch of movies that are coming out this year from like a bunch of my favorites that I'm like,
yeah, that's true. I guess it's a Christopher Nolan movie.
We've got a Christopher Nolan movie. We got a Robert Eggers movie. We've got we've got Dune Messiah.
Primate.
Yeah, it's Primate.
Wuthering Heights.
All right.
Anyway,
Ben, why don't you give us your top TV your TV recommendations?
Sure. So there are like some deaf themed entire shows like Switched at Birth, but I've not seen that. So the ones I'm recommending, 2 of them involve deaf culture, and one of them, Geoff already mentioned, involves Amelia Jones, which is Task. I'll start there. She is fantastic in Task, a very different type of role, but you could still kind of the same. I feel like it's some of the same sensibility in the character, even though it's a much different type of, property.
Very committed to her family.
Yes. And she's excellent in it.
So good.
So, and I remember when Task came out, like listening to people talk to me, like, that's the girl from CODA. I hadn't seen CODA at the time, but my other 2 are so one is just a specific episode, which is the Only Murders in the Building episode, The Boy from 6B, from I believe the first season. And it deals with, the whole episode is silent, if I remember correctly, and it's all from his perspective. And that kind of takes those few moments in CODA and stretches it to an entire episode of his perspective of it. And then the other one is The West Wing, which involves an arc from Marlee Matlin, which is where I first knew about her. She plays she's in a relationship with one of the characters on The West Wing, and she also works within the the Washington D.C. world. I can't remember what her job is in it, but she's a very effective actress. I think there's a reason why I feel like she's like the most well-known deaf actress basically ever, and she's really good in that as well. So there you go.
Shout out to Academy Award winner Marilee Matlin.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Geoff, why don't you give us your movie recommendations?
Yeah, so I know I mentioned it already, but my first one would be Lady Bird, Saoirse Ronan and Greta Gerwig's solo directorial debut, playing a high school senior, trying to have to deal with all of the pressures of family and coming of age and trying to find your passions in the world and feeling guilty about leaving home, and trying to deal with all of that. So an incredibly stacked cast, an incredibly stacked movie. Very much recommend it. I think that it is a fantastic movie that has aged wonderfully. And yeah, I think it holds up very nicely with Greta Gerwig's other movies. The second one I'll recommend actually ties into a point that you mentioned, Ben, about someone going from hearing to deaf and the struggles that that person faces. Is a movie released for Prime Video that got nominated for Best Picture in 2021 called Sound of Metal. Stars Riz Ahmed and Olivia Cook and Paul Raci, and it's about a heavy metal drummer who suddenly loses his hearing. How do you deal with that? The struggles that go on with it, how your life evolves, changes, what surgeries do you need? How do you communicate? Like trying to become one with the deaf world. And it's an extraordinary movie. It's a movie I haven't seen in a few years, and I know I just need to rewatch it. And I remember just absolutely adoring it and loving it. And I think I need to see it again, especially after watching CODA. And then the third movie is among this year's current Best Picture nominees, Sentimental Value. And I feel like of all of the Best Picture noms, that is the one that ties best with this, mostly because of the familial drama element. It's about two girls whose father comes back into their lives because he's trying to create one last movie, one last hurrah. He's a film director, and it rehashes a lot of the traumas and struggles that they had to deal with growing up. Both Amanda and I had it in our top 10s for 2025. It is a very, very good movie. So
Ben's going to watch it before we get to our Oscars episode.
Good. I was going to, as a joke, say F1 because I'm like, guess what, y'all? You're on Apple TV Plus. Just wait a few minutes. You're going to get recommended F1. There you go. But no, I won't. I won't do that.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So we will move into our top 4 now, which, we kind of talked about choirs, but obviously our main character, Ruby, is very into singing and is in choir, and that's a very important part of this movie. And so we decided to do the top 4 songs that we sang in choir, since we all were choir kids and took part in many different variations of such. So Ben, why don't you start today?
All right. So I was in choir all through middle school and high school, then went to school to be a music ed teacher, was in choir at college for a year, then quit music ed and stopped being in choir. So I have not been in a choir aside from a little bit at church since my freshman year of college, but I remember a lot that I did in high school and middle school, which is what put together this list. So my honorable mentions are the Jabberwocky, which I think is a common high school choir song, to my knowledge, that a lot of people have sung. My other is one year when a really great senior class was leaving, not my senior class, but a couple years before that. And it was also our directors last year. They sang "It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday" by Boys to Men, which was very emotional at the time. And then my other honorable mention, when I was a junior and we got our new choir teacher after the aforementioned teacher retired, I convinced her to do "Who Put the Bump," the 50s classic, and she just agreed to do it. So we did it. So there we go. But my top 4, number 4, is probably not one either of you have heard. When I was in 6th grade, I was friends with a kid who was a brilliant piano player, and he played for our choir all the time. And I was jealous because I took piano, but I wasn't as good as him. So I really, really worked to learn a song, and I got to accompany the choir once on a song called "Send Down the Rain." So I have a good memory of that and how nervous I was to play. I think it would take me some time to learn it now. I really, really worked. It's probably the most I ever worked on the piano was to get that right. Oh, there's that one. Number 3, Bridge Over Troubled Water, the high school choir edition, which I think a lot of people, I'll be your bridge over troubled water, which is how I was introduced to that song, by the way. Shout out to Simon and Garfunkel of The Graduate.
What?
Oh my gosh, you too.
Or are you going to Scarborough?
Oh no.
No, but that was a very fun. I remember seeing a choir perform it when we were at like some choir festival, and then our choir did the next year and really enjoyed it. Number 2, what is a high school choir if not for gospel songs? And so I'm putting Praise His Holy Name.
There you go.
Which another standard choir rep, at least at the time. I don't know how much choirs still do it now, but I feel like they don't do the gospel songs as much anymore. But boy, I really had fun singing that one. Sing to the power of the Lord come down. That's how it started. I'm not gonna sing it all, but
I remember that one.
shout hallelujah, praise His holy name. All right, and then my number 1, Amanda. I don't know if you probably did. You go to All County when you were?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so my number 1 is Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Every year.
Which was, maybe we were at the same All County one year, even though I'm older than you. We could have been.
We probably were.
Yeah. So every year our county would do their All County Festival at Chautauqua Institution. And it would always end, still does to this day, with the Battle Hymn of the Republic, where the middle school and high school band would play and the middle school and high school choir would sing. So I did it multiple times in All County, first as a member of the middle school choir, then as a member of the high school choir, which had their own separate part that they would get to do. I believe it was just the tenor and basses, and the high school choir got that slower part. Anyway, very cool moment, and to sing, I've never sung with that many people before or since. So really good memories of that, and I'm glad they still do it.
Yeah, good list. All right, Geoff, why don't you go?
Okay, so I was in middle school choir from 3rd grade to 6th grade. Went to Catholic school, and the reason why I stopped in 6th grade was because my voice dropped and nobody else's voice dropped. So despite the fact that I was one of the older kids, I was relentlessly made fun of, and I was like, yeah, nah, this ain't it, dog. I can't do this, which I felt bad because the music teacher was new that year, and I could not do it because I was a little too low for the rest of the choir. So, and then
bring us down a whole octave.
Basically that. And then I got to high school, went to Catholic high school, and I sang 9th through 12th grade. I did our swing choir my junior year. It was all 4 years of musical theater. I was our varsity singers president, which is the equivalent of like the choir group that Ruby was in CODA, but it was also like a legit class and everything. And so we did a bunch of stuff there. So long history. My list will predominantly be religious music because of that. So apologies in advance. So my number 4 is the representation from the swing choir time. I did swing. I was so excited to get into swing choir my junior year, and then left immediately after my junior year just because of the commitment level and everything else in the battle. I was like, this just is not for me. This is just not the right fit. But I do remember us doing a Disney medley vaguely, and which was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We did a tour. Like we went to New York City to sing at a couple places, and I remember that number being fun. I feel like I was the one. I had a couple lifts and some dances and stuff. So I think it was either that or maybe it was a 60s medley. I can't remember which, but it was one of those. But I figured I should put the Disney one because I think like the Lion King was in there and a couple other songs. But yeah, that one was a fun one to do. Number 3, every year our choir does a Christmas Eve service at St. Michael's, or they now do it at Our Lady of Victory Basilica. I used to sing it every year when I was back home. My brother still does. Shout out Patrick. And so love the Christmas music that they sang. Probably my personal favorite one to sing was In the Quiet Hour. I like that one a lot. And I think there were a couple like honorable mentions from that. Like I enjoyed singing like Do You Hear What I Hear or Joy to the World and those kind of things, especially because they were separated out into parts. I was a bass baritone, so I didn't get a lot to do, but I really liked In the Quiet Hour because it was an exercise in control, especially for the bass, because you needed to be a lot quieter and a lot lower, a lot more setting the scene. It was a really cool song to sing. And then my number 2 and my number 1 are both from my varsity singer days. Number 2 is "The Lord Bless You and Keep You." Used to sing that towards the end of every service. And that was always, and we used to also sing that one in the swing choir. That was a fun one to kind of bring everyone together as we kind of wrapped up. Everyone had their own parts. I got a cool, like the bass baritone section got their own little kind of fun riffs in it too. And it was a fun song to sing. I like that one a lot. And then my number 1 is "When the Saints Go Marching In," which was our school's like fight song, theme song, whatever you want to call it. And it was my first solo. When I was a senior, I was named varsity singers president. And the first mass we did for school, like in September, our choir director brought me out and I got to sing the "Oh, when the Saints Go Marching in" in front of the whole school and everything. Like, that was dope. And I know it's kind of boring to pick "When the Saints Go Marching In," but like, will always hold a special place in my heart because, yeah, I got the solo. It fits my range. Yeah, it was a good one. So those are my top 4 songs from choir. Not a very exciting list, but what are you gonna do?
Good list. Working with what you had.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
So let's see. I was in choir in middle school and in high school. I was in the Chautauqua Children's Chorale, which was a special, I don't know. They used to call it a professional choir. I don't know that it technically was, for like high schoolers. And I was in show choir in college. I majored in theater. I am on a worship team now. So I think the big travesty of this is there's probably a million songs that I'm forgetting.
I know. I thought that too.
Right? Oh, yeah. Right before we recorded this episode, I had to text my brother. I was like, "Patrick, can you send me a picture of the CD I recorded my senior year and just the track list?" And I looked at the track list and was like, "I don't recognize any of these songs. Crap."
Yeah.
So
I wanted to go to my parents' house and look at the old programs my mom saves because I'm sure I would have thought of some.
oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I have 2 honorable mentions. The first is very classic, but in high school we did Christmas Canon, which I feel like every school does at some point. And that one I just remember really liking because of all the different parts and,
Yeah.
it's fun when they all come together. And then my other honorable mention is "Let the River Run," which I think is by Carly Simon from from Working Girl, which I'm not even sure if that's a movie or if it's a
No,
musical.
I believe you're right. Yeah.
Is a movie?
Working
Okay,
Girl.
yeah.
It's a movie. Yeah, and I think that's what it's from. Let the river.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I had like never heard that song before, but for some reason it has still stuck with me and I really liked it and I liked singing it. So I don't know. My number 4 is from when I was in middle school. We got to sing "If I Didn't Have You," which is from Monsters Inc. And
Yep.
it's like Billy
That's
Crystal and John
amazing.
Goodman singing it. It was just a really like goofy, funny song, but very, very, very fun. My number 3, similar to Geoff, is "The Lord Bless You and Keep You."
Nice.
Because
Was not expecting that.
yeah, the children's chorale, we used to end all of our concerts with that song. Again, why? Like, we were not a religious choir at all, but choirs love religious songs, like Ben said. Um, so we always ended with that one, and it's actually my 3, 2, 1 are all like the songs that everybody sang, and there's just something like so powerful about that. My number 2, similar to Ben, is "Battle Hymn of the Republic," because I will never forget like just that feeling of singing that song with so many other people and how like powerful it sounded. Yeah, that was definitely always a highlight. And then my number 1 is a song that neither one of you are going to know. Probably nobody listening to this is going to know. But when I was in the children's chorale, we went to a music festival, choir festival, I don't know, in Hawaii. And there were, I don't even like, there had to have been more kids there performing than there were at All County. And we sang a song called "Homeland." And it was just, it to this day, it's one of the most like moving songs I've ever sung. And just with that many people, and I don't know, I don't know, it left a mark. So that gets my number one spot.
Nice.
Yeah. Well,
I'd like to also real quick tell
Okay.
a quick story for the listeners.
Yeah.
Which Amanda and Geoff may have heard me say before, but one of my favorite choir memories is when we were doing a song where we had to act out animal sounds, which is another high school choir standard to like sing a song, and like especially if it's like an African song or something like that, which has its own issues, but you're yelling out animal sounds and trying to make like bird sounds and monkey sounds and all these kind of things, roaring tigers and stuff. And my friend at a concert shouted out Charmander.
Oh no.
Very funny.
Charmander.
All right. Well, with that wraps up our CODA episode. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed. If you have not seen CODA, I hope that you take a listen, since obviously it's our number 3 ranked of all time on this podcast. Tune in next week. We will have a mini episode for you, or we'll be doing a draft or a list. I can't really remember which one, but it will be fun. I promise. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review, and be sure to follow us on all our social channels. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious, and don't call me Shook.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.